Sports cards are back. People are buying and selling cards with enthusiasm not seen since the heyday of collecting in the 1980s.
I think what you're seeing right now across the industry is one of the most healthy and vibrant times that we've seen for our industry.
It's tough to pass on the money to be Mesa right now.
2020 has seen record-breaking numbers for cards sold at public auctions. Over 10 have sold for $500,000 or more.
We sold a Mike Trout card limited to one, the Superfractor, for $3.9 million.
These are the two most expensive basketball cards in the world that have publicly traded.
The resurgence has been building over the last several years, largely driven by those in their 30s and older who collected as kids and are now adults with income to spare.
We all had this crappy experience of the card companies flooding the market and then our cards being worthless. But you fast forward 30 years, you kind of have a remembrance and nostalgia for how fun that was.
With the onset of the pandemic, card collecting exploded. And now, Wall Street and Silicon Valley are taking notice.
What we have never had in the business are wealth managers, money managers, hedge fund guys, alternative investment funds.
And so what we've been doing is just buying the best of the best. We created a $20 million fund.
Card collecting is different from what it was 40 years ago, but the crash of the 90s is still haunting. Card makers and collectors are determined to avoid repeating their mistakes and cash in on this popular alternative asset.
I think cards are definitely having a moment, but if you take a long-term view of this, the cards are here to stay as an asset class.
If you were a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s, more than likely you collected baseball cards, and your father told you they'll one day be worth a lot of money. That's because your father saw his card collection from when he was a kid become valuable in the 1970s, when a generation of boys came of age and rediscovered their card collections. For example, in the late 1960s, a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card, considered one of the greatest vintage cards of all time, was worth about $1. A decade later, it was worth about $1,000. In 2006, a near-perfect version of this card sold for near $283,000. And in 2018, a similar card sold for just shy of $2.9 million at auction.
A lot of people, my age in their mid 40s, we grew up in the 1980s and the baseball card boom and going to shows. So there are a lot of adults out there now in my age range that grew up, collecting baseball cards and enjoying it, having fun with it.
It's difficult to put an exact value on the card industry at its height, but David Liner of the Topps Company says around its peak in 1991, sales were between $1 and $2 billion in a given year.
What's hard is if you look back at the late 80s and the early 90s, it was really a boom about baseball cards. It was less so about the NBA, NFL, and the NHL, which today are much bigger properties.
And then the industry crashed. All the cards 90s kids collected, worthless.
That bubble was driven by oversupply. Restricted supply initially, and then it burst when the company said, you know what, we're going to make 2 million of these Ken Griffey rookie cards, but tell people that it was much fewer. Most of my friends, were similar ages in the 30s, 40s, our collections are frankly worthless from that period of time, and that's why it's the card companies.
About 20 years later, those same kids grew up and began revisiting their old card hobby.
In 1996, that's when the junk wax era, the mass production era ended. 1996 was the first year where they really started serializing cards, and you started getting real scarcity. The reason that's really important is the people who grew up in 1996, they were about 8 to 10 years old collecting. Now they've reached disposable income, right? So all the cards that I wanted when I was a kid that I couldn't afford, now that I'm working and I have some disposable income, people like me are like, I want to go and finally buy that.
The industry had seen some major changes. In the late 1990s, card grading became popular. For a fee, companies like PSA, Beckett, and SGC rate cards on a scale of 1 to 10, taking into account the quality and rarity of the card. The higher the grade, the higher the value.
It's a commodity. People know the general range when the 8 is going to go for, and it allows a lot of people to buy and sell trading cards sight unseen. That changed the industry more than anything else.
When I was a kid, grading wasn't a thing. Like you'd walk into a card shop or a card show and, buy raw cards, which just means, cards that were pulled out of a pack and they're in some little penny sleeve or whatever. I got cards graded in the late 90s when I was a teenager, when these companies were just getting going. The concept of having a official grade, like it's mint or it's Gem Mint, whatever, and that it's authentic, I think is very critical.
The card makers went through consolidation and sports leagues signed exclusive deals with one card company. Today, Topps produces cards for Major League Baseball. Panini has the rights to the NBA and NFL, and the NHL is signed with Upper Deck. These brands further increased exclusivity by offering limited edition cards, better known as hit cards. Finding a rare card that includes an autograph or a piece of a player's jersey could instantly be worth 5 or more figures.
All of the manufacturers, we are all well aware of what happened in the 80s and 90s and not wanting to repeat those mistakes. Our licensors, Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, they are all well aware also. It's not over licensed. For the most part, we're able to manage within our lane of those 4 licenses to ensure that we're creating great products that will resonate for years to come.
In the early 2010s, breaking started to gain a following online. It offsets risk when buying unopened cards and has amassed a following on YouTube and Twitch.
Say a box that sells for $500 and you've got 10 packs in the box. So people can buy slots in that box and say everybody can buy a pack. And the person opens up, okay, this pack is for this person.
Got Brian H. Padres, Michael S. Nationals, Cameron M. Royals, Michael C. Rays.
And it's all done online. It's all done in front of the camera. And you don't know what you're going to get. You know you're going to get a pack from that box. So somebody may get something worth $25. Somebody may literally get something worth $50,000.
Logo Man, patch auto 1 of 1. Luka Doncic. Boom! Dude, somebody has to get rich on the stream.
Breaking to the trading card community is our version of esports, and it's great, and everybody I know loves it.
After an injury landed Rich Layton at home for an extended period of time, he rediscovered his card hobby and stumbled upon breaking.
I hadn't collected since I was a kid, and cards had changed a bit. I saw I got a relic card with a piece of Game Used jersey inside of it. I received an autograph card in the box, and I was blown away. Those things did not exist in the mid to late 80s when I was collecting when I was younger. One thing led to another. This took me onto YouTube. I even came across a couple of people who called themselves breakers. And I saw their videos and I thought to myself, man, I feel like this is something that I can do well.
Rich founded Layton Sports Cards in 2012 and has been breaking cards ever since. The company has 11 full-time employees, boasts one of the top YouTube channels for breaking with over 30,000 subscribers, and nearly doubled their sales each year since the start.
The jump from 2019 to 2020, this current year, we're expecting to double our sales again. This year, we have not stopped. Demand for our breaks and the demand for products and the demand for just sports cards in general on all markets and all facets of the industry has never been better. At least since we started in 2012, it's never been better.